Hi everyone, I want to go over how I debug this program with a student for the M2 Python assignment. We actually debugged the whole thing by email, so I didn't record anything. But here I want to go through the process of debugging this problem in case it's useful for some of you. So we're going to run this program. As you can see, this program continues to run and it doesn't seem to be able to stop. And that is sort of a symptom of an infinite loop. And if you notice that there's a while loop at the end, you know that this is probably where the problem is, because while loops have a tendency to become an infinite loop if you're not careful about the stopping criteria. So I'm going to stop it here. And as you can see, if the iterator, if you are able to get into the while loop, that means your iterator I is less than 5. However, within this loop, if you don't have a way to update the value of I, it'll never go over 5. It'll remain as the same number, and that's why you have an infinite loop. So what we need to do is just to iterate I. So I'm going to increment it by 1 for each iteration. So let's try again. And you will see that this time it only did 1 iteration, and the ReLU output for 4. So that means I is 4, and then my feature is 1. So there are several problems here. One is if I starts as 4, then of course it'll only do 1 lap in the while loop. So that's not right. If you remember what we're trying to do here, we need to be able to go through all of the my features value, and there are 5 of them. So we need to iterate 5 times, not just once. And so it's the reason why it starts as 4, if you think about it, a variable always gets its value somewhere, right? So if it's 4, it must have been set to 4 somewhere here. And this is the same variable from the for loop. So the for loop ended with an I value of 4, and that's why you start with 4 here. So what you want to do is, if you want to use the same variable, you need to reset it to 1. Okay, so let's run this again. So this time the while loop runs correctly for 4 times, not 5 times. So there's still a problem, but at least we're moving in the right direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, but notice that the ReLU output for 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is incorrect because my features should all be 1s because that's what I entered. So, and we want the ReLU output for my feature. So this really should be my feature, not the iterator I. And it should be all 1s. So what you want to do is you want to replace that with my features I, because we want this to be the my feature. And then the ReLU value really should be ReLU value, right? Not my feature. So what you want to do is you want to run the ReLU function on my feature, I. Okay, so if you look at this function, it's called my ReLU. So we should make it my ReLU. Okay, and to print, this is probably okay. So we're going to run my ReLU, the function on my features, to get the ReLU value. So let's try this again to see if it works. Okay, so it's 1. And the ReLU value for 1 is actually none, even though we know that my ReLU works because it worked up here. Okay, and we should get a value of 1. Why are we getting none? So that's really tricky, and because it has something to do with my ReLU, we know my features work because it prints correctly here. But my ReLU does not seem to work, so that gives me a clue to go back to take a look at my ReLU. And what I notice is that this function actually does not have any return value, because when you're calling myRelu here, you're relying on the function to give you a return value so that you can print it right here. Well, this is a function, but we did not specify a return value here. And so what we need to do is we need to change the definition of this function so that instead of just printing to the console, it'll actually return this value, okay, so that you can print the value. And over here, we'll probably need to do a print, okay, otherwise it won't print to the console. So let's try this again. Okay, so now we have correctly printed the ReLU value 1 for each of the features. So we've solved most of the problem except for the fact that we only have 4 features printed instead of 5. We need 5, and that's really because the index for my features is actually 0 to 4 instead of 1 to 5. So what we want to do is change the index to start with an 0. So let's try this one last time. Hopefully we have addressed all the problems. So I'm going to enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we see that we have 5 my features and their ReLU values are all correct. And then we are done with this assignment.